Your Best Manager, Episode 20.
Good managers are inquisitive because they understand the power of asking good questions. You see, true leaders are experts at asking key, open-ended questions and are able to dig into the nitty-gritty with their team members without making them feel like they're being interrogated.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Your Best Manager podcast, featuring interviews with senior managers and leadership experts, as well as practical advice for first-time managers.
And after today's show, be sure to hop over to yourbestmanager.com and sign up for my free live masterclass, where you will learn 7 strategies to retain top talent and help your best employees reach their potential. Happy New Year, everybody. It is officially the first Monday of 2017. And that means that the Your Best Manager podcast is back to the regular routine, sort of. We're back to 3 days a week, but today's episode was jam-packed with just so much stuff that I decided to break it into 2 parts. So today we have part 1. Part 2 will be on Wednesday, and then the first featured interview of 2017, which is going to be with employee engagement expert Jill Christensen, will be on Friday. And then we're back to our regular routine. And let me tell you, this year is going to be awesome. I've got a ton of great guests lined up, and we're going to be discussing some really important leadership topics. Here's a preview.
Why we really have to be thinking more in terms of how am I showing up as a leader? What is the environmental conditions I'm creating? And does that really inspire people to bring their full selves to the work they do?
After a few years as HR manager for North America, to take on president of IKEA North America.
But we've seen tons and tons of studies recently that say your EI, or your emotional intelligence, is more important in order for you to succeed in the workplace. And if you are leading people, this is absolutely necessary.
Remember that your team is also trying to impress their new boss, not just you trying to impress your new boss.
After 4 years as store manager in Pittsburgh, I had definitely been very vocal about women in leadership.
The key with leadership is to be very good about giving people feedback, kind of real time. Always let people know where they stand, and then be very good about receiving feedback.
How about that? So, are you ready for a fantastic year? I certainly hope so. Oh, and something else exciting that's coming up, and you heard about this during the introduction, but on January 18th and 19th, I'm hosting a free live masterclass, 7 reasons why your best employees will quit this year. I know, welcome to 2017. You know those employees who you think are great, who your customers think are great? Yeah, they're considering leaving your organization. But don't worry. I'm also covering 7 strategies to help retain top talent and achieve your goals, your employees' goals, your team goals, your business goals, your professional goals, and your personal goals. So, if being an effective leader is important to you, which if you're listening to this podcast, I know that it's important to you, hop over to yourbestmanager.com and sign up. Did I mention that I'm excited for 2017? Well, I'm excited for 2017. So let's kick this year off strong with today's episode, part 1 of what I'm calling the Inquisitive Manager, 10 questions that will make you a better leader instantly. And here's another incentive for you to register for my upcoming masterclass. Just for showing up to the live event, I'll give you a copy of my mini ebook of the same title, where I take everything I'm talking about through today's episode, part 1, and Wednesday's episode, episode 21, and summarize it in a mini ebook. And you get that for free. Yeah, just register for the masterclass, show up, and get a free download of my mini ebook, The Inquisitive Manager. Now, some of you may have already received a copy of the first draft of this ebook because I gave it away to everyone who entered the Harvard Business Review contest that I ran in December. But I've made some edits, added some content, and yeah, go sign up. And with that lengthy introduction, here we go. Strap on your seatbelt because we're going to cover the first 5 questions that will immediately transform your leadership. Have you ever wished that you had the ability to read your employees' minds? I certainly have, and sometimes I've even tried to do it. Unfortunately, trying to read your employees' minds is really dangerous, and that's because you're doing it wrong. Here's an example. You're running a meeting with some of your direct reports, and you provide some direction toward the end of the discussion. Maybe you're asking for a report to be submitted, or maybe you've just given a pep talk to inspire great customer service. Maybe you've just given instructions for a new project. Regardless of the message, your eyes pan across the room and you notice a few blank stares. Right, I know, this has never happened, right? So you notice these blank stares. This is the moment. Right at this moment, you say to yourself, I really wish I knew what they were thinking. You might even ask them point blank, hey, what are you thinking? Maybe you get an honest answer. Maybe you don't. So what do? Now they're walking out of the meeting room and you feel like you should say something, but you don't want to overthink it. So again, what do? Here's what you do. You try to read their minds. After all, you're a good manager and a good judge of character, right? You've also developed some strong relationships with your employees, so it isn't too much of a stretch to assume that you can observe their behavior and come to some conclusions about what they're thinking, right? So let me ask you, can you relate to this? Can you relate to giving a message, seeing blank stares thrown back at you, and then wondering what they're thinking and making some assumptions? Well, unfortunately, experts say that this type of thinking is a bad idea. In a Harvard Business Review article, Stephen Berglas writes that sometimes a little knowledge about emotional intelligence, or EQ, abets the delusion that you know people better than you actually do. While behavior certainly tells a story, it doesn't tell the whole story. You aren't actually reading your employees' minds in this case. You're making assumptions, and assumptions lead to bad decisions. However, I suggested earlier that trying to read your employees' minds is only dangerous because you're doing it wrong. Now, I don't mean to imply that there's some sort of hocus-pocus formula to help you psychoanalyze your staff, but what I'm suggesting is that you have an opportunity to be a more inquisitive manager. Good managers are inquisitive because they understand the power of asking good questions, and not only asking good questions, but asking the second question, which we'll talk about in a moment. You see, true leaders are experts at asking key, open-ended questions and are able to dig into the nitty-gritty with their team members without making them feel like they're being interrogated. So let me ask you a close-ended question. Are you an inquisitive manager? But here's a better question. What is the most effective open-ended question that you could ask your employees? I'll give you a minute. So maybe you came up with a good question, but what if you had 10 or more questions you were prepared to ask on a regular basis to help get your employees thinking, sharing, and collaborating more? In fact, what if you developed your skills as an inquisitive manager to a point where simple questions could empower your team members? If you subscribe to this podcast, keep your ears open for an upcoming interview with a fellow Canadian and leadership expert, Tanveer Nasir, because we talk in depth on this subject of inquisitive leadership. But let's get into the questions. Here are 10 questions that will make you a better leader instantly. And yes, I said instantly. This isn't a too good to be true claim. Your leadership will literally change. The only caveat is that you have to actually ask the questions. But literally, even the very first time that you ask one of these questions, you're going to notice a change in how you lead. So here we go. Question number 1. Why are you here? According to a Gallup study, 70% of U.S. workers are not engaged at work. 70%! That's crazy. And let me add here that these employee engagement studies don't just include frontline employees. Oftentimes we make the assumption that the problem is a level down from ours on the org chart. But if you're an employee, which means an employee at any level of the organization, this stat suggests that 7 out of 10 of your peers, as well as your employees, are disengaged. And I'm convinced that this lack of motivation stems from employees not finding meaningful purpose in their job. Too many people try to separate work and life rather than find ways to integrate their performance at work into the achievement of personal goals. I've already said that good managers understand the power of the second question, so here's an example. The first question might look like this. Your employee walks into the office on Monday morning and the first question is, "Hey, how are you?" And what's the common response? "Oh, I'm good." Or it's the morning, so maybe the response is, "Oh, I'm tired." Most managers never go past that question. Most managers never ask the second question, which in most cases starts with the word why. Why are you good? Why are you tired? Can you tell me about it? It's the power of the second question. But that's not necessarily the purpose of our first question here. The first question that will change the way you lead your team is, why are you here? You're asking this open-ended question, this why question here, to uncover whether or not your employee is working with passion and direction. When you ask this question, and any other question really, you're either going to get a good answer or a not so good answer. In this case, when you ask this question, why are you here? If your employee is motivated, you'll get a good answer. Now, you may need to ask the second question and dig a little bit to get that good answer, but a motivated employee will be able to tell you why they come into work every day. Anything less than a good answer here is an opportunity to help your employee find his or her why, to help them find that meaningful purpose, and maybe to help them become engaged at work. On to question number 2. Question number 2, what's working right now? Do you regularly receive honest, timely, and constructive feedback from your employees? Do you solicit the opinions of others when it comes to how you're running your team or your business? Well, if you're like most managers, myself included, the answer is not so much. But there are some really valid reasons why you aren't receiving regular feedback. Perhaps you think you're doing a good job and don't need the feedback. After all, if you don't think you need help, why would you ask for help? Or maybe you're avoiding feedback because you're afraid of what you might hear. Or maybe your employees are afraid to give you honest feedback. Another reason could be that your team members don't know how your performance is measured or don't actually even know if you're doing a good job, so what would they even tell you? There are other reasons as well, but I'm not actually going to challenge any of these excuses. I recognize that asking for feedback is tough. It takes dropping your pride. It takes listening. It takes vulnerability. It's uncomfortable. Now, while I'll encourage you to work on that, this question, what's working right now, is an opportunity for you to solicit feedback without the anxiety. Well, unless the answer is that nothing is working well, and that just might be awkward, but you got more problems than just this question if that's the case. Anyway, I'm going to suggest that you try asking this question on a regular basis in your office. What's working right now? This question can help you develop your leadership skills and your business because you will receive constructive feedback, constructive criticism, in the form of positive behavior reinforcement. This works because it's easier to say good job than it is to say here's something to work on. However, it often accomplishes the same goal because when you know what you are doing well, you can continue those behaviors, continue those programs, continue those actions, and through that process, recognize actions which may contradict what's already working. I mean, think about it. Imagine that you just asked one of your team members, hey, what's working right now? No matter what they tell you, you're going to feel good because you would have had a hand in delivering that expectation or delivering that direction. And because you know that it makes them feel good that they are recognizing, hey, this is working, you're going to want to continue doing it because if you're a people pleaser especially, but you're going to appreciate knowing that your employee is happy about a decision you've made, happy about a program you've worked on, because it's going to give you the confidence that they're about to give it their best. So by asking the question, they are actually reinforcing your positive behaviors. And this is important because the problem is that we often don't actually know what's working. And as managers, we experiment and experiment without actually hearing when something works because we don't ask. This question can help you identify those things. All right, question number 3. What can I do to make your job easier? And obviously, this is a question that a leader is going to ask their direct report. Well, let me ask you, has your boss ever asked that question? How can I make your job easier? If you said yes, you probably have a great manager. But the rest of us probably thought, are you kidding me? Why would my boss ask me that? Yeah. Many employees feel like it's the manager's prerogative to make their job more difficult, not less difficult. After all, if things are going well, doesn't that mean it's time to add more to your plate? But let me say this, and I'll argue this until I'm blue in the face, but the key to every leadership challenge starts with developing a quality relationship. And what I'm about to say is true in business, in sales, and in leadership. Your effectiveness in any role comes down to whether or not people know, like, and trust you. And it happens in that order. Your employees, your leaders, and your customers need to know who you are. So take the risk, be vulnerable, and share some personal information. Allow people the opportunity to get to know you. Next, you need to be liked. Sounds maybe a little bit superficial, but it's true. People do business with friends. And if you've ever heard of this thing within leadership called, what is that? Favoritism. Yeah. It's because bosses don't promote people they don't like. Now, I don't mean to say that if you haven't been promoted, your boss doesn't like you. I'm just saying that he or she likes, on some level, the people he or she promotes. It's not favoritism. It's just how our relationships work. So how do you become someone who's well-liked? That's the golden question, isn't it? Well, the answer is to listen and serve. Listen to others. Listen to your employees. Find out what's important to them. Find out what makes them tick. Spend time with them. Talking about them. If you spend time with them talking about yourself, it won't work. Spend time with your employees talking about them. And then through that conversation and through the relationship you start to build, find opportunities to serve them. Not to suck up and make them like you, but to provide value to them. And again, this works the same way as your customers. This works the same way as your own boss. Spend time with them. Find out what's important. Serve them. And that's where this leadership question comes in. Ask your employees how you can make their job easier. And then make their job easier. This will absolutely change the loyalty and motivation that you see from your employees. But it all hangs on the final point, trust. Again, people need to know, like, and trust you. And you'll earn their trust not only through displaying integrity, but through producing results. In the business world, your ability to produce results is critical to your employees trusting you and your boss trusting you. After all, businesses are in business for business, to make money. And if your team doesn't make money, you're out of a job, or your boss is out of a job, or your employees are out of a job. So you need to produce results, and results in this case in business builds trust. See, I told you today's episode would be jam-packed because we've run out of time, and I totally thought we were going to get through 5 questions, but we got through 3. So you'll have to tune in on Wednesday, episode 21, where I will slam through questions 4 through 10, as well as there's at least one bonus question, I'm pretty sure. But until then, go to yourbestmanager.com and register for the live webinar. You'll receive the Inquisitive Manager ebook just for showing up, but you'll also learn 7 strategies that you can implement to retain your top talent and achieve your 2017 goals. And that's the whole point of it. Thanks for listening.
All right, everyone, that does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Now hop over to yourbestmanager.com and take advantage of the free tools, resources, and training which I've created exclusively for you, the next generation of leaders. Oh, and have fun.